Hey, hey. I hope the last 3 weeks have passed peacefully for you. I'm currently facing a situation where I have a lot on my plate. And yet, my file with my new 3D model crashed. Fortunately, a close friend of mine who is a programmer was able to assist me, even if he doesn't know Maya at all and how its code works. I didn't get the file back in full because it got corrupted and was written with weird symbols. But it's something. It's not zero. However, this event, together with the fact that I was also working on a project for someone else and on preparing this video too, has caused me to have a serious delay with my plans. Well, it happens. And now back to the grind. Now, why I still have the strength for it, I'll tell you what happened after the neurological hospital informed me that there was no available space and made me wait for a whole month to be admitted. In hindsight, I should have called an ambulance and not worry about it at all. Or even better, I could have called a TV station. That would have made quite a story. Or not, I don't know, don't care. I believe I mentioned before that I don't recall much from that month. It was all down to a constant barrage of stress and worries. Imagine a situation where you got a message like this. You won't receive assistance or any help for another month. You feel utterly helpless, and it might take even another month. And what if longer? What if you receive the help too late? What then? To add to the complexity, you share your living space with your ex, who became quite a burden, and there are 2 other roommates on the other side of the wall, each of them living with a partner. There is no refuge to be found. There is nowhere to sit down in peace and collect your thoughts. You can't even cry at full throat and get all your grievances out. You can't really count on any help either, because your ex has 2 left hands and flatmates consist of 2 students with an inflated ego and mommy complex. By that I mean they expect you to do everything for them because they can't manage things themselves or are too lazy. For instance, who in their right mind pour water after cleaning the floor into the sink? Apparently, the toilet is the preferred destination for that, as it's less likely to get clogged immediately after. That's actually an example of stupidity, but who cares? You got the picture. Yes, I'm drifting off the topic. How shall I put it then? The beginnings of that month was not easy. The hospital appointment was far away, and the human minds work as it works. Although at that time I absolutely did not allow myself to think that it would stay that way. The problem? It was getting worse by the day. I had less and less control over my right hand. I couldn't hold anything in it. A stupid pen weighed a ton. To compound the problem, it wasn't long before my left hand began to weaken too, forcing me to rely more and more on my ex's assistance. And I must admit, I wasn't finding any enjoyment in this situation at all. Around the middle of that month, I reached a point where I couldn't hold anything in my hands anymore. Everything felt incredibly heavy. Drinking from a cup involved resting it on the edge of a table and leaning towards it. Essentially, the table's edge served as support, while my hands offered unsteady assistance. Fortunately, I could still bend my arms and elbows. It took me ages to eat a meal. All the cutlery was smarter than my fingers and frequently slipped out of my grip. And just one night, I even managed to slap myself in the face with my own hand as I rolled from side to side. Cool, right? My ex laughed about it for a week. What a moron. Halfway through that month, my right leg started to join the party, and I had to drag it behind me. Fortunately, it somehow managed to support my weight, though for a short time, but still. And at the end of that horrible month came the worst of it. Slowly I began to feel pressure on my ribs. It felt as if someone had tied several ropes around my chest and clamped it tightly. I couldn't take a deep breath, and I was afraid that I was going to suffocate. I probably should have stopped waiting and insisted on being admitted to the hospital. But I never quite knew how to be audacious enough to take such a step. This is something I learned from my parents. Stay quiet, carry out your duties, and be happy with what you have. Well, no. If you don't speak up, it means everything is fine. And yet, it wasn't. You're probably wondering, where are my parents in all of this? My mom asked if she should come and help me, but where would she stay? I would have to get rid of the parasite and his gang of spiders first. Maybe that would be the right thing to do. It might help my parents better understand my situation because they've never truly witnessed any of my episodes and just how severely I struggle with everyday tasks. Instead, I hide. Shouldn't do that. So you know what was happening to me physically and mentally? Apart from not allowing myself the thought that it could stay like this, I had a huge amount of time to think about what to do next, how to approach this problem, what steps to take, and what to do with my job. Will I have anything to go back to or not? I might even have to go back to my folks' house because I might not be able to work. It wouldn't be a helpful thing to do, but I still had to consider this. Meanwhile, my best friend at work, who also happened to be the leader of my team, demonstrated that he was an incredibly kind and supportive person. He finished my task, did all the corrections, and didn't take a penny for it. The entire payment came to me. I didn't ask for that. I didn't know he's doing that when I was off until our manager told me about it. Even though it wasn't a lot, it was something. And I needed money badly at the time. It gave me a certain sense of peace and security, at least on the professional side. I knew I had something to come back to when the time came. You know, my leader helped me. My manager didn't kick me out. He approved my leader help. So that was nice. With my friend, we would occasionally have phone conversations. Rarely, but still. And during those times, he was likely the only person who actually made an effort to uplift my spirits. So I persisted patiently while waiting to be admitted to the hospital, and I finally got there. Of course, I was in a much worse state than I had been a month earlier, and it would probably have been easier to help me sooner. But who really pay attention to that? What truly counts is the present moment, not the fact that in a month's time the patient may pose a greater challenge and also incur higher costs. And that's it for today from my story. Thanks for listening, and I invite you to the next part of this video, dedicated to my creature and what you can see on the screen. As I mentioned before, I know a bit about the D&D world, which allowed me to create this creature, or not a creature after all. Basically, all that's left of the dragon here is the soul, essence, driving force of the silver dragon and nothing else. Nevertheless, here is the bio of Fink. Once upon a time, quite a long time ago, he was a peaceful, order-loving silver dragon. He was not very recognizable, and it may not have been noticed that he was beastly ended and turned into a mindless machine. Now he simply does what he is told. Only somewhere inside it feels resentment at this state of things, but it is a faint and fragile feeling that it tries to look after within itself in those rare flashes of consciousness. As a mechanism itself, it probably wouldn't be able to move well enough. The point is, there is still magic, which eliminated most of the problems. Eventually, simple instructions are enough for the thing to follow a command without the need of additional supervision. Additionally, you can discover more about my challenge entry and thing on the page linked in the description below. I wouldn't describe sketching various mechanical elements, buildings, or related subjects as one of my preferred pastimes. In fact, it's quite the opposite. I've never really ventured into developing my skills in that direction. I've been completely unattached to it, as you can probably see. Here, however, I decided to brush up on these aspects a little and create something unusual in the process. For some reason, I didn't record the process of creating the blockout. I don't know, I forgot, or the file got lost. Yeah, right. Still, it's a cool way to give yourself a baseline for creating such a creature or some building or other complex structure that would be hard to classify as organic. Although blockout can be used for such things too. Here, as you can see, I relied quite heavily on my blockout to create this sketch. It was a huge help, not only because of the shapes, which are not particularly complex anyway, but also because of the perspective. It's much easier to control it that way. I have to admit that this time it was extremely difficult. Not only did it literally pain me to go back to those events from years ago, but finding the right words to convey it all was also quite a struggle. I often think about how different I might feel now if I had got help sooner then. How would I have felt if I hadn't led to this problem in the first place? Or under what other circumstances might I have found out about my MS? Or perhaps not at all. Actually, this kind of thinking will get me nowhere now. Fortunately, I've acquired valuable lessons that aid me in steering clear of future issues. After a few years' time anyway, not from the start, including implementing good practices, avoiding stress as much as possible through observation. I've learned that abrupt and intensive stress can trigger an MS episode. Regular exercises, whether it's working out at home, taking walks, or swimming. These activities helps me maintain my body in relatively good condition because I require movement and my body often reminds me of that fact. Workstation adjustment. If something bothers me or causes me pain, with prolonged use, I try to improve it. So, for example, you see a blanket behind my head. The normal chair is too hard for my spine. Balancing work and rest. Not easy, I know, but it has allowed me, along with exercises, to get back to a full working life. And before that, I was unable to sit in front of my computer for more than an hour or so, and that lasted for about a year. Don't be afraid to talk to the doctor. Demand help. Over the past few years, I've developed the habit of addressing any issues that arise for me between checkups and compiling a list of them. In a couple of instances, this approach has significantly enhanced my quality of life. Keeping a good level of vitamin D3. From what my neurologist once told me, vitamin D3 is part of the myelin covering of the nerves, so it is worth making it stronger. And that's all from me for now. I hope you've enjoyed it and will continue following my story. If you find this content engaging, please consider giving it a thumbs up. I'll be back in 3 weeks with more of my story, so it's probably worth setting up your subscription and notifications. Thanks you for watching, take care, and see you soon. Goodbye. There is one more thing that I need to say for a complete clarity, and I will say it again and again. I am not a doctor or any medical professional. The information I share is based on my personal observations, insights from healthcare providers, physical therapists, and various written sources. It's important to note that what works for me not necessarily be suitable or effective for others. So before adopting any practices or techniques mentioned by me, I strongly advise you to consult with a healthcare professional to ensure that you are not putting yourself at risk or causing harm. See ya.